Hi and welcome to another episode of Roy Talks Property. This channel is dedicated to help you become a serious property investor. So don't forget to subscribe. Your support is greatly appreciated. The 2023 market is unique. I'll tell you that. I've never seen a market where there's an upward pressure on prices and downward pressure at the same time. So it's very important you have the right strategy in place. Some investors are chasing capital growth and others are chasing cash flow in order to balance their portfolios. And what works for one investor may not work for another. So today we're going to look at high cash flow strategies using NDIS properties. An NDIS property is a property specifically designed to meet the needs of people with disabilities who are participating in the National Disability Insurance Scheme in Australia. These properties are built or modified to be accessible and inclusive with people with disabilities, and they usually have wheelchair ramps, wider doorways, adaptive bathrooms, etc. What's beautiful about these properties is the rent to yield. You can get anywhere between 8 to 12% on an NDIS property. So no wonder NDIS properties today are the new cool kid on the property investment block. How cool are NDIS properties? Let's take a deep dive to have a chat about 8 must-know facts about NDIS properties, the true deposit required to buy an NDIS property, and the true cash flow of an NDIS property. The scenarios that we're looking at are based on an NDIS property in Victoria. This is not financial advice. It doesn't take into consideration your personal financial position, so take it with a grain of salt. Let's get into it. Capital growth. So I've personally inspected a few NDIS properties, and I can tell you one thing, they look different. So because they are very tailored to a niche market, you can expect less capital growth from an NDIS property. Depending on where you are at in your portfolio, an NDIS property may or may not be suitable for you. Minimum deposit required. When NDIS properties came out, you needed to put down 30 to 40% because it was a new product. Fast forward a few years later, you can now get away with a 15% deposit, which is beautiful. However, being a very tailored product, you can expect to pay higher interest rates for an NDIS property, and the rates are from 7% and above. Fact number 4 that you must know about: bank valuations. Like any loan, you need a bank valuation for an NDIS property. Generally speaking, an NDIS property is valued as a residential property. The valuation report comes back with a shortfall. For example, you buy a property for $700,000, it gets valued at $650,000, so you as an investor have to contribute another $50,000. There is a way around it. You can order a commercial valuation. Commercial valuations are not free and usually cost $2,500, which is absorbed by the investor. Keep this in mind because this will affect your deposit required to buy an NDIS property, which we will cover later in this video. Fact number 5, loan structure. Your loan structure must be principal and interest, so it's a very important factor, the fact that you are going to be paying off your principal, and that will affect your cash flow. We will have a look at what that looks like later in this video. Fact number 6, vacancy rate. Not many people talk about this, but upon completing an NDIS property, you need to enroll and certify your property with NDIS. This takes about a month. Then you need to find tenants to occupy your property, and this could take anywhere from 2 to 3 months, all while paying a full mortgage on your property, and that obviously will affect your cash flow. Fact number 7, property management. An NDIS property requires a specialized property manager, and they usually charge around 12.5% property management fee. Point number 8, insurances. NDIS properties require higher or more expensive landlord and building insurance, so you can expect that to come in anywhere between $2,500 and $5,000. So now we know how to work out the minimum deposit required, considering we're going to need a commercial valuation, a 15% deposit, the structure of the loan, the expected vacancy rate, and the management fee. So let's first have a look at the deposit required to buy an NDIS property in Victoria, and then the cash for what that property looks like. So what we're looking at here today is the deposit required to purchase an NDIS property in Victoria for $900,000. We're assuming that we are going to build this property and the loan structure is going to be principal and interest. The investor will be putting down a 16% deposit, so that's a deposit plus lender's mortgage insurance, and they will be taking out a $765,000 loan. Stamp duty in this situation is sitting around the $20,000, and we are going to assume a rental yield of 11%. Being an NDIS property, like discussed earlier, the interest rate will be a little bit higher, and the property management is going to be 12.5%. Because it's an NDIS property, like we mentioned earlier, the landlord insurance and the building insurance is going to be a bit higher. So we're estimating around $8,000 in annual property expenses. Being brand new, you're going to get some tax benefits from the property, obviously. So the deposit required is $144,000, $20,000 for stamp duty. Legals are $2,000. commercial valuation 2.5. And because we need to make sure that we can afford to hold the property while the property is being certified with NDIS and enrolled, and until we find tenants, we need to allow 3-month vacancy of paying the full mortgage on the property, which will work out to be around $15,000. And at the end of the construction, you're gonna need to get an inspection report, which costs around $1,000 or so. So the total deposit required is $183,000, call it $185,000 to purchase an NDIS property in Victoria. So what we're looking at here today is the cash flow of a NDIS property for the next 5 years. We're buying the property for $900,000 and putting down a 15 or 16% deposit, and you're taking out a $765,000 loan. At an 11% rental yield, the income from this property is $99,000 a year, which equates to just under $2,000 a week. As discussed previously, the running costs of an NDIS property are a little bit higher, so you can expect to pay around $8,000 for landlord insurance, building insurance, council rates, water rates, etc. Property management is also a little bit higher. You're sitting at around 12.5%. It's actually almost double what you pay a stock standard property manager. You pay 12.5% of the total income of the property, which is $99,000. So you'll be paying a property manager $12,000 and some change. Your mortgage repayments, the interest on your mortgage is $56,000 and the payments towards your principal are $10,000. So the total running costs of your property are $86,000 per annum. This might get a little bit technical now, so bear with me for a second, and I strongly suggest you have a chat with your accountant before buying an NDIS property and check what the tax implications of such property on your personal situation. In this scenario, the principal and interest repayments are not included in your taxable cash flow, so we need to deduct the $10,000 from your $86,000 cash flow, and that will leave you with around $22,000 of taxable cash flow. So on paper, it looks like you made, as an investor, $22,000 from this asset. However, you shouldn't have to pay tax on that because you're going to be claiming the depreciation of the house and the fixtures and fittings to reduce this income close to zero. Once you do that with your accountant, you should have a net cash flow of just under $12,000 from your NDIS property, which is pretty cool. If you're interested in having a chat about buying an NDIS property, reach out using one of the links below. NDIS properties can be a great investment if they work for you. So don't get distracted by the hype of it all. NDIS properties come with some risks that you need to be aware of, and I'm planning on doing another video to discuss these risks and how you can mitigate these risks as an investor. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel to get notified the next time I upload a video, and I'll talk to you again soon.